Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And very good evening and welcome to Newsline Live. As always, we're broadcasting from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. Now then, Geneva is round the corner. It's almost like the Ides of March. And there are various issues, human rights, but there are also economic rights. And we've got a person who's our guest tonight, who's formerly with the Human Rights Commission, a lecturer of law, and he's freshly returned to Sri Lanka from the West Indies, and he's none other than from the Colombo University, Professor Prathiba Mahanamahewa. Very good evening to you.
Good evening, Faraz.
And how is the professor doing?
Actually, these days we are giving the education. On the 10th, we passed the International Human Rights Day.
Right.
Better to recover from, health rights, and also to set up the safety of the people. So those programs are running at the moment.
Now then, the Ides, I call it the Ides of March. It's also the UN coming up, I think, in March. And I thought I can read out to you. They want Sri Lanka to be to answer some questions, but if I may, if I can read this report. Here we go. Responding to the International Criminal Court, the ICC, prosecutors' decision to conclude the preliminary examination into allegations of war crimes by the UK military in Iraq, Matthew Cannott, the head of Amnesty International Centre for International Justice, said the prosecutor's damning report found that the UK armed forces committed war crimes in Iraq in 2003, including torture and rape, and that victims had been deprived of justice by the UK authorities. The prosecutor's decision to conclude the examination provides a roadmap for obstructionism. It rewards bad faith and delays brought about by the failure of the UK military and authorities to conduct independent and impartial investigations into allegations in the immediate aftermath of the conflict in Iraq. Now, this is the same government who are pressuring, part of the pressure, into Sri Lanka. Years have gone by. Is there any purposeful, meaningful outcome? And shouldn't, instead of all this carrot and stick business, shouldn't the international partners, the West, if you like, the US, Britain, Europe, Australasia, shouldn't they all be helping Sri Lanka on regaining the economic rights of the people, working towards reconciliation, and actually uplifting the economy?
For us, the statement is very clear. Now you know who are the perpetrators. Now I mean not only UK, this is a joint force.
Yeah.
That means US also there,
Yeah.
UK also there. And very clearly that report say, but I have my confidence, they never take any action. Prosecutions may not happen. Now this is ICC. Why can't they come to the United Nations Human Rights Council and pass a resolution against this type of things? They are always pressurized in Sri Lanka. With the new US government, definitely the earlier resolution may come. I am not supporting Donald Trump, but he did something great because he said United Nations Human Rights Council is corrupted with politics. That I agree. But now what will happen with the new government, they will start with that. But as you said very clearly, these are the partners who are pressurizing Sri Lanka to come up with a resolution and find out and punish these war crimes. But I mean, in the same way, the United Nations Human Rights Council must look Sri Lanka on the other hand.
Yeah.
They have to support us.
Yeah.
For that also, Sri Lanka, we must have a national human rights plan. So March, we have to get ready. Still, we are struggling with COVID-19 and with the health issues. But don't forget, end of February, definitely these partners are coming up. So for Sri Lanka, we can join with India. They are also having this Kashmir problem. And also Vietnam, China, Russia, they are all supporting for Sri Lanka. So always what we can do, that resolution will be coming up. And also Sri Lanka, some of the NGOs, they are also writing to them, and they are also bringing up certain issues are coming up in Sri Lanka as a pressing issue and all. So we are pressurizing internally as well as externally. So externally the other parties are there. So here what they have to do, they have to support to establish the economic rights. For that it is very important. I mean, the new constitution must be introduced. When a new constitution is introduced,
will that happen?
it has to be. Specifically, you must have a very strengthened fundamental right chapter. Right to life is not there. Even economic rights are not there. Right to privacy is not there. And all these things, we can have a good defense. We will have a good defense. Even a draft constitution come up and go to a dialogue. I think the expert committee is doing that, and Minister of Justice also having that objective. And but they invited a lot of proposals. I don't know how many Sri Lankans supported with proposals. Now they say they are ready with the draft. Right. I mean, that draft must come up specifically, like 1996 South African Constitution very strongly protected even the environment right. Yeah. Now what's happening in Sri Lanka, most of the time we are, issues are coming with environment and other things and biodiversity. For all these things, one defense is where chapter 3 fully removed and introduce a new chapter starting from right to life and coming up with the new technological advance, data protection and right to privacy like that. So that is one. And also we have to strengthen the rule of law. That is also very important. And
how important is important?
That is very important because now there are more than 800,000 cases are still pending in most of the courts. So that's why the 20th Amendment, I think, introduced more judges and the courthouses are expanded. And also we must think something like pre-trial, which is not happening. I have seen in Caribbean countries that pre-trial before that. And also we have to see the democracy on the other hand. So all these things as a part of a chain. So once you come with the new constitution with a strong fundamental right chapter, I am not going to other chapters, with the limited time I am telling this chapter, there are some limitations that also we must think. So the main argument how to combat the Geneva resolution, number one, there must be a proper human right plan Sri Lanka. And also the northern part, there must be reconstruction program are coming, rehabilitation programs are coming, rather than people are suffering with, starvation. That is where we have to see most of the economic rights. So the economic rights, even Sri Lanka signed 1966 Economic, Social and Cultural Right Convention. Most of the rights are not there. If you can show those rights in the constitution, and access to resources are also very important. I think infrastructure facilities, roads and highways are there now. But even that, we have to see more things to access. Now today, you see, I am a lecturer. I have seen most of the time, we are doing online lectures. Most of the online lectures, lecturer participation is there, but it is not much exposure. So, but some people are there not access to that. So, digital dividends is very high in the country. But Sri Lanka bandwidth is very high, and also facilities are there. If you go to certain grassroots level only, you may not get the connectivity. So, these are some of the rights. So, right to communication also very, very important. So, what I mean, you started with this British statement, and Lord Nisby also supported in Sri Lanka. So, these are the people, now they are figuring out war crimes, torture, all these things are happening in the country. But that is not the way they should arrest. They should address, because they are facing those problems at the moment. So
they themselves are
themselves. UN, 193 countries. All countries are equal, and all countries have the same power. But 5 nations, they are trying to pressurize. But look here, in the British government also, most of the time, Sri Lanka, in the war period, those who escape to Sri Lanka, they are doing the brainwash. I have seen. So they are the people giving misinformation. So all these ambassadors, all these councils.
So what are they doing about it?
That's why I'm telling. They have to give the awareness. Even every evening they can have these social functions. Rather than that, awareness of Sri Lanka is very, very important. I think the new ambassadors has gone. They have a big, big duty to do defend Sri Lanka, and how we have done this in future.
So that's very important in your view.
Yeah, I mean the awareness. New government vision for the next 5 years or 10 years. What is the plan? how we are going to develop the country. So the developing also a right. It's a fundamental right of the
So
people.
what you're saying, Professor, is that the need of the hour is sound, democratically driven policy.
Yes.
That's the need of the hour.
Yeah, I think when government went in front of the people and they took the mandate, there was a document. That is where the prosperous statement or Saubhagya Dakna. In that very clearly stated how in future they are going to make the policies. Now the time is there for the government and the cabinet must look that mandate. So people actually believed the mandate, the president and the policy. Now the next few years, forget about these petty politics. Work together to build Sri Lanka. For that, there is a structure, there is a plan, there is a policy. But once again, if we are going to argue all these things, it will not go forward. So what we must do in future, we must have the proper plan, proper policies. Policies are made. When the policies are made, that is
isn't
not
it a bit
enough.
late in the day? 72 years later, we are still struggling with policy.
I don't think. But can you remember 1997 government? They had a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
When the new government came, they changed everything. But USA or UK, nothing happened like that. So if we set up a policy, it is not for the politician. It is for the country.
And so we must stick to it.
We must stick to it. Now what happened? The closed economy we had. Immediately it went to open economy. Then it changed once again. So that is where politicians try to fulfill their whatever the things they need, rather than thinking about the country. But now we have to think about the country, all the nations. We have to think and we have to set up example for the world. That's why we have to start.
My guest last night on this program
Yeah.
on Newsline was Mr. Lassel de Silva, who's spent over 30 years in Parliament in the administrative side. And when he was appointed to Press Effect as the secretary there, he commented yesterday that he had a bird's eye view of all the cases, and they had sound judges and prosecutors and investigators and so on, and yet he was removed for whatever reason, and he said that the corruption was for real. They had all the evidence and so on. But as a man of law, aren't you, are you not worried that none of these things are reaching a courthouse?
Definitely it should be. If the investigation completed, if you have strong evidence, then the Attorney General can indict. There are no problems like that. So the issue, why this is staggering like this? So we have to see, that's why the ministers must see, and they have to discuss these things in the cabinet level. And not to pressurize. These are all independent institutions.
Right.
Independent institutions, politicians or any other person cannot go and pressurize. But if they are working independently, and also the new commissions have been set up. Now there is a bribery and corruption commission, former well-reputed Supreme Court justice is there. So they can take action now. So for the take action, you have all this investigation. Now the investigation was done previously, or whether there are strong evidence to prosecute, yes, they can do it. So the issue we have seen, some time delays can come up. Even the Easter Sunday Commission is still going on.
Yeah.
And also Bond Commission. Now the Bond Commission, 22,000, these pages they have prepared and sent to Singapore. So Singapore Attorney General also have seen it, and they are trying to extradite former central bank governor. So, but the issue, this is not pushing forward. That's the thing. So that's why even the bond scam, Sri Lanka High Court can indict, even without the
But they're not. Let's find out why after the short break, shall we? We're in conversation with Professor Prathiba Mahanamahewa. Join us after this short message.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly. Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. We're in conversation with Professor Prathiba Mahanamahewa from the University of Colombo. Is it realistic to develop a new constitution without taking into account previous constitutions?
Previous constitution, there are good provisions like right to information as well as the executive powers, and we have to see the independence of the judiciary. I agree most of the things, but there are certain things has to be changed. Number one, preferential voting system should be changed.
That should be changed.
Change enormous money. If you are not changing that, at least the political parties must be given account how much they spend for these elections. So this is where the most of the time the corruption is coming. Now you have seen they are spending enormous money, no accounts like Bangladesh. So here, those systems must be there. So checks and balances. But I am really concerned with the fundamental rights chapter. So that's why always I am supporting. But as you said, even 1972 Constitution, 1978 Constitution, there are good provisions. We have to take that. We have to peruse and take. And it must be a constitution. Now 20 amendments are there. It has to be a constitution for a lifetime. So that's why we need most of the new things to be added. Technology change, economic change, social factors are there. You have to give the minority rights. All these you have to be concerned. And then only develop a constitution so we have a structure. Now earlier we had the British system. Now we have the executive president. Now the third one, we have to the third Republican constitution. What type of a thing we have to take? So that is where we have to think. Once again, I agree with the executive president system, but there must be some checks and balances. And also fundamental rights, you know, the judgment of 20th Amendment, even the presidential immunity, what the Supreme Court said, that is where you need 2/3 majority as well as a referendum. But even that is not there in the previous constitution also, it was like that. There are a lot of cases where president actions was questioned in most of the time in a Supreme Court also. So likewise, think in a way that should develop the country and should be a modern constitution. Most of the time, I will give two countries, South Africa and India. If you can see that and come up with a new constitution, I think it will protect the people right as well as the development, and it has to be an equal development for all the districts.
But Professor Mahanama, I've heard what you say, but what about, as a man of law, again, I ask you, are you not worried that at a time when Sri Lanka's economy is really struggling, you know, we are, whether we like it or not, whether if you cut our hands and whether we are green or blue or red or whatever, the facts are stubborn. Sri Lanka's economy is suffering. It doesn't matter that the rest of the world's economy is also suffering. In this background, this lethargy in addressing corruption and recovering proceeds of crime, like you just brought out yourself, the bond scam. This is item 2 on the President's Manifesto, and I'd say it myself. What's going on? Why is there this lethargy? Why can't we go ahead and prosecute people if they're not turning up, if you can't serve them with notice? Stick an advertisement in the paper, but get going. Why the lethargy?
Yes, I think we have to now enough sleeping time. Lethargy we have to go into an active time. So the active time, you must need some time because we have an adversarial system in this country, not an inquisitorial like other countries. So adversarial system, you must give enough time to hurt the suspect also. That is one way.
Yeah.
And the other side, you must have a proper investigation. If you have the proper investigation, if you have the evidence, and then the prosecution may come up. I think recently I have seen that Attorney General Department had done a good job, and they are actually trying to come up with all the files ending and prosecuting the people. So prosecuting the suspect or prosecuting the offenders, whatever I call. So this is where we have to see. So the lethargic thing is coming up because people, and we have also have one side. Even the ministers are working as ourselves. We have to also work. Now see, most of the time, presidents suddenly go and check all the ministries, sometimes departments, and they get up. And RMV, we know 600 transfers.
But how many things like that can the president do?
President can't do everything alone. So therefore, good backup system must be there.
Can I ask you this? along with the accumulation of power to the presidency,
Yeah.
thanks to the 20th Amendment, do you think that this president will use, or is it possible for him to use, his vast powers to drive the need for a new constitution?
He can. I think he has that objective very clearly. What he must do, put into action now. That's why they have given within 1 year the new constitution has to come. Within 6 months the draft has to come. So, as I know, pushing is the theory. We have to do it. And on the other side, president cannot do all these things. So there must be the ministers are there, the new ministers are there. They also must actively support. And there are some programs I have seen, they are going to the village. President has gone to the village,
Yes.
and, solving these problems. Those are good things. And president getting the idea how to, change those things even in a short time period. So that is one thing, good vision. But the other thing, people also, we have a duty. We have a duty. We have to work for the country like other countries. So if you are doing your daily work as a schedule, it may not go on. Sri Lankans, how they work in Australia, how they work in USA. They do 5 jobs, 6 jobs sometimes. Why? They'll get money there. But that courage is there for every Sri Lankan. And Sri Lankan, there's a very good demand in many countries for intellectual and even unskilled workers. All these are there now. Now, most of them are migrating or coming back to Sri Lanka. So why can't you set up a system like that and operate it?
Yeah.
For the operation, the ministers also must give their fullest cooperation. Then only the people also will come forward and do these things. So we have to understand, because COVID-19 with the health regulation, it's very hard. But even with the minimum period, you said the economic is going down, but there are certain ratings. I don't know these ratings are biased or not. That is a different thing. Many countries are facing that situation. Now with the limited resources we have, Sri Lanka is an agricultural country. And we don't want to worry about these vegetables and other things. Everything is there. So what we have to do, that system must develop. Most of the countries, they don't have that system.
And that is that's the real answer. We must.
From my side.
And last question before we come to an end. Do you think the president's brothers and relations will allow him to change this country?
I think they are helping. They should support, because there is a vision.
They should, but are they?
We have to see that, because still only 1 year.
But
We'll
this
keep
is
the
all-
criticism for later, and we see how
But
the
this is the
system
whole
is running.
trouble. Every time a government comes in, they say, well, it's a new government, 100 days. Well, it's this government, let's wait, let's see.
No,
we've
we
been
can't.
waiting, we've been seeing things for 72 years, Professor.
Agreed. We can't wait this time. This time, everyone, even relation, brothers, sisters, sons, and everyone should think the vision. If everyone working for a policy, this may work. That policy is there. So set up that policy and give some examples and work together everyone, rather than, thinking your individualism. It has to come with a collectivism policy.
And that is really the story.
Yes.
You've just come back from the West Indies, and there's a viewer has reminded me, is it time that the people of Sri Lanka, to borrow the words from Mr. Bob Marley, stand up for your rights?
Bob Marley was a hero in that country.
But
So,
his words,
yeah, his words we can get as a sample. His songs, he was fighting against the slavery and all these things. So that was a good example.
but is it time for Sri Lankans as a whole to get out of their do-nothing seat and stand up for their rights?
Rights, the other side of the coin, duties. You must fight for your rights, as well as you have an obligation to fulfill your duties. If both things comes together, Sri Lanka can develop.
Professor, thank you very much for your time on Newsline. And that's the way it was on Newsline Live. Take care, have a great evening ahead of you, and it's now time for the prime time news from News First. God bless you.